they will have watched 350,000 TV commercials. They're programmed for an over-consuming lifestyle from the moment they can watch television. The myth is the more you consume, the happier you become. The reality, the more you consume, the fatter you become, and the more waste you produce. Mahatma Gandhi said it very well. He said the world has enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. So I'm going to look at that linear society again, look at this impacts. One, you need a lot of energy to extract virgin materials, and then a lot of energy to ship them halfway around the world. In the process, you produce a lot of solid waste, air pollution, water pollution, and carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide contributes to global warming. More energy on transport, more energy on manufacture, more solid waste, more air pollution, more water pollution, more carbon dioxide, more global warming. 70 times more waste, solid waste, is produced here than over here. So every time you put a trash can out, think of 70 cans of waste that's been produced, making what you've just thrown away. All of this energy use is contributing to global warming. Now, how do waste management practices affect this picture? Let's start with landfilling. Landfilling, no change. No change at all. Because if you bury something, you have to go all the way back to the beginning and start the process all over again. No mitigation. Incineration, the same thing. If you burn something, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. However, and same with the gasification, other material destruction facilities. On the other hand, if you recycle, you cut out the impacts of primary processing, extraction, transport. If you reuse objects, you cut out both extraction and manufacture. Composting is similar, but composting has something else. Composting, as you notice, this is compost. You'll see the bits of wood there. That is captured carbon. That's carbon that is going to hang around in the soil for quite a time. If you were to burn that, that wood would immediately be converted into carbon dioxide. And if you put it into a landfill, it will be converted to methane. So a European consulting company, and I think you've got to be careful with this because there's many different calculations out there. This may be one extreme. But this AEA 2001 indicated that a combination of recycling and composting is 46 times better at reducing greenhouse gases than incineration generating electricity or gasification producing electricity, because these do not save the energy from extraction, manufacture, and so on. And what the incinerator industry does is quite misleading, because what they do is to compare themselves to landfills. They say, you know, landfills produce methane, which is 25 times worse than carbon dioxide for global warming. We produce CO2, blah, blah, blah. Therefore, we are reducing global warming. Poppycock! Only if you limit the choice between landfills and incinerators, which is a silly thing to do. Incineration is a waste of energy. I love this, waste to energy, waste to energy. 4 times more energy is saved by reusing, recycling, and composting than by burning. This is an excellent study by Jeffrey Morris. He's been doing this for over 20 years. He's from Seattle, Washington. And this is what we're talking about now. We're talking about, look at the energy produced by the incinerator and compare it with the energy saved by recycling and recycling. Let's look at it. Here's a table of the various materials which could be burnt in an incinerator. This is the energy you save by recycling. This is the energy you get from burning. And this is the ratio of how much more energy you get from recycling than from burning. Look at this one, PET plastic. That's the plastic of water bottles. 26 times more energy is saved by recycling those PET bottles than burning them. That's a Canadian consulting company from 2004. So it's an environmental crime to burn plastics. It's a particular environmental crime to burn PET. And what are they burning in incinerators? Plastic and paper. Incineration is not sustainable. It doesn't challenge our overconsumption of finite resources. I've mentioned every time we burn something, we've got to go back to the beginning. Incineration wastes energy, wastes the opportunity to fight global warming. In short, incineration sabotages genuine moves towards sustainability. Other arguments against incineration. It is a poor economic investment. Very few jobs are created for a very large capital investment. It wastes valuable time. It's very inflexible and stifles innovation. It generates a toxic ash. It doesn't get rid of landfills. It produces toxic air emissions. It's unscientifically and poorly monitored. Incineration is extremely unpopular with the public. And lastly, there is a better alternative strategy. At this point, I have to strip. Okay, it's a poor investment. Most of the money spent on incinerators goes into complicated machinery and leaves the community and even the country. In your case, it would leave the country because there's no Canadian company building incinerators. Over half the money spent on a modern incinerator goes into air pollution control equipment, which is unnecessary if you don't burn it. Incineration without massive subsidies is one of the most expensive ways of generating electricity. Here is the Brescia incinerator in Italy, the most beautiful incinerator in the whole world, I am told. The Brescia incinerator cost 300 million euros, $400 million, and produced just 80 jobs, full-time jobs. Of course, you produce a lot building the darn things. Incineration creates very few jobs. In contrast, the money spent on the alternatives goes into jobs and stays in the community. So, in Nova Scotia, they were considering an incinerator in Halifax. They didn't build it. In 5 years, they diverted 50% of the waste from landfills and 60% in Halifax. They created 1,000 jobs in the collection and treatment of those materials and another 2,000 jobs in the industries handling those secondary materials. Incineration wastes valuable time. It takes about 25 years or more to pay off the massive capital investment costs involved with building an incinerator. It stifles innovation. This is a quote from Ludwig Kramer, former head of European Waste Management. An incinerator needs to be fed for about 20 to 30 years, and in order to be economic, needs an enormous input from quite a region. So for 20 to 30 years, you stifle innovation, you stifle alternatives, just in order to feed that monster which you built. Now, in your case, what you're doing here is you're providing a toilet. You're providing a toilet to industry to get rid of their waste products instead of investing in clean production. And you're providing a toilet for lazy communities that can't be bothered to organize their citizens to separate, recycle, and compost. So you're making bad things happen in other places, and that's called stifling innovation. Incinerator produces a toxic ash. For every 4 tons of waste that you burn, you get 1 ton or more of ash that nobody wants. 90% of that ash is bottom ash that falls through the grates, and 10% is fly ash, extremely toxic. This is toxic, this is extremely toxic. How do they handle it in different countries? In Germany and Switzerland, the fly ash is put into nylon bags and placed in salt mines. In Japan, some of the incinerators vitrify the ash, but use up most of the energy that they produce doing that. And in Denmark, beautiful, clean and green Denmark, which has more incineration than any other European country. 47% of their waste is burnt in Denmark. They have a wonderful solution for the ash. They send it all to Norway. So it doesn't get rid of landfills. Incinerators perpetuate landfills because you need ash landfills for them. And I could show you, I don't have them with me, photographs of the huge ash piles, which sometimes are actually grow side by side with the incinerator. And one of the attractions of a 100-acre site is that they will be attracted to store the ash on site, which will be a disaster waiting to happen with that Kettle River so close.